The first thing I'd like for you to do in the second part of the video is to create a site tag. So after you created the site tag, window the entire site, all its surfaces and lines, and right-click, make that a group, and put the group in the site tag. So again, what I'd like to do is to just turn it off just to make sure everything is good. Leave the 4 homes off and the site plan off as well. We do not need that right now. The next step requires you to look at the PDF file located in your Canvas assignment called Tiny House Site Plan Notes. And right now, this is all that you have to be concerned about right here. And it's telling you that the finished floor elevation, which is the top of slab, is 0, 0, which is typical for a site plan. And right here is the slab in which the house will sit on. So this part right here is considered 0, 0. And everything is measured from that point. So if you look at this, it says top of grass, -2 inches, top of curbs, sidewalks, walkways, 0, 0, street elevation, -4 inches. So really, if you look at this, all you have to remember is grass, -2, street elevation, -4. So I'll switch it back to SketchUp and maybe position your site similar to this so you can see what you're doing. And here are the slabs. So anything that was 0 we don't touch. So this, the path, and the sidewalks. Now remember, all we had to do is the grass area and the street area. So the next step is to edit this group by selecting it, right-click, and edit group. And with your push-pull, select the grass area and move it down the -2 inches. So just type in 2, enter. And the street, that was -4 inches. So again, move it in the direction you want to go and type in 4, enter. Now if you notice, we have the wrong color here. So before we go on with anything else, I want to reverse all these faces. So I'm going to select it, make sure it's in the editing mode, and triple pick, right click, and reverse faces. Okay, so now we need to work on the curves down here, and I just noticed that I forgot to push-pull this part of the grass. So I'm going to editing mode again, push-pull, pick on that, and that was 2 inches. All right. So far so good. We have the elevations of the grass and the street, and of course this was 0, 0. Now what I like to do sometimes is turn off the axis lines here, and I do that by going to View and Axis here. They get in the way of some things sometimes, so you can just turn them off. If I zoom in here, we now need to make a curve to make the curb. So I'm going to zoom in a little closer here and create a rectangle. It's always good to create a surface first before you draw your profile. Okay. Now this part here we don't need, so I'm going to just erase that. I recommend getting a little closer to this because it helps making those arcs. And for this, again, we're going to use the 2-point arc. So select that and make sure you're in the editing mode. And you're going to start here at the top of the curb. And generally in this area here, you can pick and it'll form this. So you don't want to go outside like this. So once the left side of the curve here is pretty much even at the top of the sidewalk, go ahead and pick there. Now this other part, if you remember, we need to see the cyan color line in order to have a good transition in this area. So if you just come down here to the bottom of the street, that's a good pick. And then, oops, I forgot to stay there. So you got to get it back to where it looks like this. It'll jump around a little bit, so you got to be careful right there. So when you see tangent at vertex and you see the cyan color line, that's when you should pick. So when I pick there, again, that means that we have a nice transition between these two arcs, and we don't have a bump here or an angle. And something generally like this is fine. It may look a little different, but you should not have an angle right there. Now, this part here, we need to get rid of. We need to keep this, but we need to get rid of this. So that's a simple push-pull. Select this surface and go all the way back here to the top of this line, and that's our edge of our site plan, so I can pick there. I don't have to orbit over there. And if I look at this and I see there are two sections, and we have that line because we have a joined arc right there. Now, we don't want that line, and we don't want this in that color. Remember, it should be white, and it turned out to be this color. So again, you know what to do with that. Right click on that and reverse faces, select, right click and reverse faces. Now, this little profile here, just leave that for right now, but let's get rid of this line here. So we don't want to erase it, because if you erase it, we get a little gap, so we don't want that. So what we have to do is to soften it. So select the line, right click, select the line, right click, and then go to soften. All right? So it's similar to hide, but you don't want to hide it. You want to soften it. Now, this profile here, we need to make the same profile over here. But in order to do that, we would have to set up guidelines and remember where we picked and so forth and so on. But the best thing to do is to just copy this profile and place it over here. So I'm going to window that. And since this is all stuck together, we're not making individual groups within the group. This is stuck. So if you try to move that over, it's going to be pulling things like this, and you don't want that. So once you window that, then you can go to the move. And here, what you can do is just pick either this corner here or this here, tap the control key, and then move it back here. Now for right now, see, we don't have a point to put it there. So maybe the best thing to do was to pick not here, but up here. So I'm going to try that. So let's pick that, tap the control key, and now we know exactly where we should put it, right there. Okay? But if you notice, it's reverse. So we have to do a little bit something here. We can right click on that and go to flip along, and that's the green direction. Okay, flips it along. Now it's in the right position. Okay, now if you notice, we don't have a surface here to push, but we have this. So what we can do is to delete these, okay, and push the profile all the way back. Okay. Now, if something happens like this, we have a little extra line here that I'm not sure how it got there. I'm going to come over here to, and it's over here as well. So we might not even photograph this part of the sidewalk and the curb here. Most of our view is going to be with the homes. So for right now, that really doesn't matter. If that happens to you, what you can do is to maybe erase that line, see what happens. Okay, that's good. So this sidewalk is maybe 1/8 of an inch wider. We don't need these lines. We're never seeing them. You can leave them alone, or you can just erase them like that. This is already white, so you don't have to reverse the faces, but you do have to soften this line. So select that line, right-click, and soften. After we make our curves on both sides, we can back out of our view. And the last thing to do is to raise this fence over here. So the top of the surface here, you can maybe raise it up 3 feet is fine, 36 inches for right now. You might have to modify this over here and add another little piece of wall here. So I'm going to do that right now. And I'm just going to estimate this to be around the half, or you can pick that there to there. And I wouldn't worry about this. If you want to, what you can do is to soften those lines or try erasing them and see what happens. So nothing happens, so you're good. Now we don't need this little piece. I'm going to erase that. And I made a line here so I can extend this bottom portion out a little bit. Maybe not all the way to the street, but maybe somewhere like that. Okay. So I just did that, and I'll show you why we did that later. But we need a little piece here to block the horizon line because I don't want to see this line in your view. So once you have the fence, let me see, I need to erase this line. I like to clean things up. And so far, so good. We have all the correct elevations. And now what we can do is to get out of the editing mode. Look around. Everything looks good. Again, if you want to clean this up over here, that's fine. We're never going to see this. Oops. Forgot to edit this. And erase those lines there. Okay. Don't worry about that. I think I noticed my grass wasn't looking right, so I thought I pushed that down, so I'm going to do that again. Push pull, select that, and that was 2 inches down. Enter. Okay, so now I think we're good. I just don't like to see these little excess lines. Even though we might not see them in our view, I like to clean things up. And one last one over here. And there's some over here. So that's good. Now, in the instructions, I told you not to make this a group yet. But we already did that. So bottom line is that everything you see here should be in a group for right now. So whether you did it before like I showed you or you do it now, that's fine either way.